question 18. Mrs. Caine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could I ask the Minister for Education, Sport and Culture what his department's early years strategy is and whether it will be reviewed to meet the challenges of economic regeneration and more flexible working?
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. The department's focus is to support parents of preschool-aged children 3 to 4 by offering preschool credits, which can then be used in registered child day care settings. When the preschool credit system was introduced in 2012, it provided £350 per year at the standard rate and £1,150 at the higher rate to parents. The preschool credit system is now universal and currently provides £3,420 per year to parents. The credit amount is reviewed annually. In terms of a wider early years strategy, the Department for Education, Sport and Culture is currently developing this, and it will form part of the lifelong learning strategy due to be completed by July 2021. Thank you.
Supplementary, Mrs. Caine.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the Minister. Can I refer him to the current 5-year strategy, 2015 to 20, for early years, that aim to build resilience to overcome inequalities? I would ask, has that been reviewed in terms of how successful that strategy has been, seeing it win out at the end of that period? And given the emphasis on making universal provision through the voucher scheme for preschool, does his department have any intention of reviewing it to see whether the best start for all young people on the island would be to bring the preschool year back into the state-funded school-provided education?
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. The department leads a cross-government childcare strategy working group whose focus is to work with the child day care sector in order to ensure that there is sufficient good quality affordable childcare, including wraparound childcare and holiday provision available and accessible to working parents and carers. The remit of the Working Party includes investigating ways to enable more support for parents with young children, particularly around flexible working. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Honourable Member for Council, Mrs. Paul Moulton, for her involvement in the working group. One of the parts of that working group was a survey which was done in 2019 to assess both the needs and the requirements of parents as well as the current provisions. And that is being worked up, particularly on the background of the COVID-19 pandemic, to see how we can use childcare not only to support those parents but also to trigger off economic regeneration. Thank you.
Supplementary, Mrs. Lord Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is the Minister in a position to commit to reporting an update to this court on the recommendations that were amended and agreed by Tynwald from the Childcare Strategy Working Group, and noting in particular that such recommendations did involve ensuring that those working in childcare or setting up in childcare are not burdened with excessive bureaucracy, the wraparound care that he has mentioned, and the completion of the development of a childcare strategy in line with the original 2018 recommendations. Is he able to commit to an update perhaps in the coming months so we can see how this is working? Thank you, Mr. President.
Dr. Allinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for her question. As I said, the Childcare Strategy Working Group is actively working on a lot of the recommendations that were previously suggested, and certainly when they have finished their work, and part is how that links in with the lifelong learning strategy, I will be in a position to refer back to this Honourable Court in the new year.
Mrs. Kane.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the Minister for the undertaking to come back to this court. Can I ask him, is he aware that there are significant concerns about the availability of adequate amount of child places in preschool settings, both the preschool year and earlier nursery settings, and that this could have a significant impact on availability and also people's decisions in terms of locating on the Isle of Man if they have children requiring that? And again, I would say, is there any consideration being given that the best way to provide excellent standards of preschool education is through the school setting, especially when we have availability of places within the schools? Thank you.
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. In terms of the demand for preschool places, the department is aware that in certain areas of the island that can outstrip supply. There is a geographical variation with private providers, and we are aware of that, and actually working across government, particularly with the Department for Enterprise, is an important part of the ongoing work of the Childcare Strategy Working Group. In terms of her second question regarding going back to the situation beforehand, where preschool care was provided by the state sector through our existing schools, there is no current plan to revert back to that, particularly given the fact that in the intervening years we've had the development of a private sector on the island. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Mrs Lord Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the Minister very much for his answer. I wonder if he might consider pushing for a conclusion and some outcomes from the childcare working group. And I wonder, does he recognise that some childcare providers are struggling and the lack of availability does impact people's ability to work? And does he recognise that lifelong learning is actually a separate matter from childcare in many instances? Thank you, Mr. President.
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think the Honourable Member makes a very good point about the complexity of the issue, because in terms of preschool care, we're dealing with both the services provided to that individual child in terms of childcare, but also education, which is a very important part of that, but also the wider ramification for the family and the parent or parents involved. And so certainly I am very keen to progress action on the early years strategy, both in terms of helping that child themselves, their family, but also by linking into some of the developments in terms of flexible working as well, to facilitate those people who want to go back to work, but ensure that their child receives the necessary care available. Thank you.